Welcome to Spiritual as Fuck,
Spiritual as fuck.
where spirituality meets the real world. I'm Liz Volpe, social entrepreneur, psychic medium, teacher, and founder of the Intuition Academy. I am passionate about inspiring people to dream big and change the world.
I'm Diane Driscoll, a coach, facilitator, keynote speaker, and self-directed healing practitioner. I am fascinated with all things science, spirituality, and self-leadership, and love the journey of incorporating my spiritual gifts into my life and business.
We share real and raw spiritual stories, give you a safe space to challenge what's normal, and have some serious fun along the way. If the podcast isn't enough, we invite you to our monthly online events and workshops with some of the world's best spiritual teachers.
Plus, join our Spiritual Renegades community and get bonus episodes and lots of exclusive content. Everything you need to be spiritual as fuck. Liz and I thought long and hard about who would be our final guest of 2024. We wanted someone who would help us transition from 2024 into 2025 and elevate us in the process. Our manifestation efforts paid off as Chibs Okereke is here to talk to us about all things mindfulness and meditation. Chibs is a stress and burnout coach, an accredited mindfulness facilitator, and one of the leading voices on the Calm app. Chibs takes us on a poetic and jaw-dropping journey from meditation and mindfulness to psychedelics, out-of-body experiences, and alien probes. In his work, Chibs has impacted more than 2 million lives through his guided meditations and mindfulness sessions. We are so delighted that Chibs has gifted us with a customized meditation to guide us through releasing 2024 and setting our intentions for 2025. This meditation will be available as a separate bonus episode, so you can easily listen back to it at any time. Thank you, Chibs, for this wonderful gift. And to all of you listeners out there, Happy New Year, everyone, and we hope you have a spiritual as fuck 2025.
Welcome back, everyone. And I feel like I need to say, we hope you're having a really nice Christmas. We're right in the middle of the break right now, and I'm sure that you are all having fun and relaxing, hopefully. Now, today we are heading on a journey somewhere we've not necessarily dived into before, and that is all things mindfulness and meditation. Because we know, Diane and I are the first people to say that this is a place we know you have to go spiritually. And for me personally, I avoided meditation like the plague for such a long time, because I remember the first time I even tried to kind of meditate, and my mind was like going absolutely crazy. And I think I gave up really quickly. It was like way too intimidating. However, when I had a spiritual awakening, I was like, shit, I've actually got to do this. So eventually I found my own way of doing it. And I think that's probably the key. But we're going to find out. Firstly, let's welcome our guest, Chibs. Thank you for being here today.
You're very welcome. Good to be here.
I'm going to call you, I hope you don't mind, the mindfulness guru today.
Oh, there we go. All right, good stuff. It's a bit of a loaded term, that guru thing. I don't know if gurus have a very good track record either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean it in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
The expert.
Fair enough.
And it's going to be really good to kind of hear from you on your journey in mindfulness, and specifically looking at meditation, because that's something that, I feel like is just a great and a very important thing on a spiritual journey. But let's go back to you first. Where did this, or how did this happen in terms of your life and kind of the pre-mindfulness to kind of get into that point? What's the story?
Yeah. All right. So grew up in London. I've been in Australia now for 19 years. I got my Aussie passport, so I'm here to stay. So even though I've got a London accent, you might notice a bit of a weird Aussie twang. So occasionally I go up at the end of my sentences for no particular reason. So I've been here for a while. But long story short, I was doing the corporate thing in my 20s. Climbing up the corporate HR ladder, became HR manager, then went back to university to do a master's in organizational psychology. The idea was to come to Australia for for a year on a holiday working visa and then go back and become a work psychologist back in the UK, but ended up getting stuck here, having a little bit too much fun, started up a business, and then I did the entrepreneur thing for about 10 years and, kind of climbed up the quote unquote success ladder, made more and more money, had my fancy apartment and my
living the dream,
had the fancy car,
the so-called dream,
traveling around the world, first class and business class, so everyone, from the outside looking in, everything was pretty perfect. And as you say, living the dream, but few problems I had. So one, I was extremely stressed. Two, I was deeply depressed, and three, at points I didn't want to be here anymore. So I was basically burnt out really, really badly. And it got to the point where the burnout was so severe I couldn't continue doing what I was doing. So I had to pack up everything I had anything to do with and spend basically a couple of years recovering. And so during that recovery time, one of the things that I found was, I ended up going on a Ramdas retreat. So I went to Maui. So I was recovering in style.
That sounds pretty cool.
Exactly. Just throw in the big name like Ramdas.
Traveling around the world, eating and praying and loving. But but when I was there, I met someone who basically told me about mindfulness-based stress reduction. And so I ended up doing a course in MBSR and then decided, okay, this is super practical. Even though this is a spiritual podcast, I found that with mindfulness, there was nothing mystical or magical or particularly spiritual about mindfulness, but I found it very, very practical. And it was a very practical tool to help me and others reduce stress. And I thought, it's not being taught in a way that resonates with people like me, kind of high achieving, success driven, kind of slightly type A people. So I thought, there's a place for me in that field. Plus, I figured it would keep me in a good spot, because for all my faults, I'm not a hypocrite. So I wouldn't be able to do a number on myself on the weekend and then stand up in front of a group of people and tell them to look after themselves. So I thought it would be a good way of me keeping in the lane. But at the same time, I thought, there's an opportunity there. So hopefully I can make a living out of it. And it turns out, I may have manifested COVID and I may have caused the world to burn out. So now my services are
high in demand.
Top of mind and high in demand. Yeah. So apologies to everyone for
it's your
COVID,
fault.
but it may have been my fault. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Chibs, can you tell us a little bit more about the recovery journey? Like, I just think for anyone who's on a spiritual path as well, there is a degree of healing, of recovery, of things like that. What did you find you were drawn to? What were you pulled into? Was there any kind of spiritual elements in any part of that? Because I think we all have those, and I'll use the term come to Jesus kind of moments where we, need to take a hard look at ourselves in our lives. Where was there any spiritual elements through that, through that healing and recovery journey for you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So that's not a question I've been asked before. So this is going to go down a different track then. So one of the things that really came up for me, interestingly, and again, I've not talked about this, but when I was really burning out and I hired a coach, right? So obviously I'm not going to hire a therapist because I'm a big 6'7" black dude from London. So I'm not going to,
do that.
I'm not going to get a therapist or a psychologist. So I hired a coach, but she was pretty much a psychologist, therapist, whatever.
Yes.
And so one of the things that she got me to do was to, start reaching out and speaking to my mum and my stepdad, and really kind of coming to terms with a few things from my childhood. So there was that kind of element of kind of clearing some stuff from the past, which maybe isn't spiritual, but it's kind of grounding stuff that you might not realize is even there. And also, like, my dad died when I was 3 months old. So, all of a sudden it just became very, very important for me to find out more about my dad and find out more about where my dad came from. So, I was brought up in London. So I was brought up by a white mother, but had a Nigerian dad. And all of a sudden, my Nigerian heritage became very, very interesting to me. So I guess from maybe from a spiritual perspective or a kind of deep grounding DNA perspective, it became very important to kind of go back to my roots, whatever that means. And yeah, that was a big part of the journey, and kind of finding out more about my dad, and that kind of taught me a bit more about myself, and finding out more about Nigeria, and finding out a lot more about my history.
Gosh, I love how you, like, I love, first of all, that, you haven't been asked this before and you answered it so openly and so eloquently as you do. But I do think that, whether it is spiritual or not in nature, there's that kind of soul searching element that we often find ourselves at some point in life. And I know for me, probably because I've shared that, a different path, but a burnout journey as well. And I know for me, my mental health journey and my spiritual journey are tightly interwoven now. Looking back in hindsight, I see that there's a lot of overlap, where spirituality was kind of leading to healing and growth. And I find that for a lot of people, that we're not necessarily, opening those doors and looking at those things that, and I know through mindfulness and meditation, that helps to open some of those doors and unpack some of those things that we don't really want to look at. And if we're on a spiritual path, sometimes it's like we keep trying to be spiritual. I want to be that, Buddhist monk on the hill, instead of thinking, well, no, there's actually some of that really deep work that we need to do. And I view that a lot of the work that you do is actually giving people tools to help them with that sort of underbelly that we need to face. Can you talk a little bit about that, about the importance of the tools of mindfulness and meditation for your own experience, but also with your clients, and like your one-on-one clients, as well as your corporate kind of, group setting clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, and maybe it's worth me kind of discussing what I mean by spiritual anyway, or how I think of spiritual,
please.
because, it's a bit of a loaded term for a lot of people. So I stay away from it with my kind of type of clients and organizations, because you kind of need to meet people where they are. And a lot of people that are like me and burning out, they're not on their spiritual path. But so for me, all spirituality means is something bigger than myself, right? And so I guess when you ask me about spirituality and I talk about my history, I guess my history is bigger than myself. My past is bigger than myself. Kind of this thread that goes through from generation to generation. That's kind of bigger than yourself. And I think what happens when we get stressed and when we get burnt out, and this is just a biological fact, right? Our nervous systems kind of close in and start protecting ourselves, and when we feel isolated. And that makes sense when we're in danger, because if we were super connected and we loved everything and everyone, and it doesn't matter whether it's you or me, or we're all one, then I'm not going to spend too much time protecting this body of mine, because who cares? I'll just go and float away and join the sea of consciousness afterwards. Right? So it makes sense, if we are here having this human experience, walking around this world in our human bodies, we need to protect these bodies. So, evolution or whoever or whatever, the universe has kind of created these nervous systems where when we're under threat, physical threat, we protect ourselves. But that makes us feel alone. And the more stressed and burnt out we get, the more alone we feel. So a big part of what I do, so if you'd spoken to me a few years ago, you would have said, what do you do? I'd say I provide tools to reduce stress and burnout, practical tools and techniques to reduce stress and burnout. And I'll teach you mindfulness meditation so that over time you build up your resilience, so you don't need to bring out your tools as often, right? So that was my very practical way of looking at things. And then as a burnout coach, so people are coming to me over and over again. And within the first 5 minutes, it's like, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why the hell am I putting myself through this? Why am I working so hard? And I'm like, I don't know, actually. Let's work that out first before I start messing around with the tools and techniques, right? So then another thread came into what I do, and that's purpose, right? And so that's the very first thing that I would work on with a client now is, why are you here? Let's work out, before I start messing around with all these tools and mindfulness and whatnot, why are you here? For some people, it's remembering why they're here, remembering why they're doing what they're doing. For other people, it's like, oh, I don't actually know. Let's work that out from scratch. And then what we find, because burnout is stress plus overwhelming exhaustion, negativity and cynicism, and a reduced performance and cognitive decline. But that negativity and cynicism, right? As soon as you work out or remember why you're here, why have I taken this job? Why did I embark on this career in the first place? That reduces that negativity straight away. So people were getting instant relief once they had worked out what their purpose was. And, you know, I kind of work with people in a very kind of quick and type A way to let's work this out very quickly.
Smash through it.
And then that's like, then that relieves all their stress and their burnout straight away. Now we just have to work on all the other stuff. All right, so here's the tools. So it could be mindfulness tools, mindset tools, cognitive reframing tools, maybe just, productivity tools, how to make your life more efficient, how to prioritize your tasks so you're not just doing busy work. So it's all, so just lots of different types of tools and techniques. But honestly, the purpose and also the vision, so knowing why you're here and knowing where you're going to go, that is a massive protection against burnout. And that was the game changer in my thinking. And that's what I think is missing from the burnout literature. And that's what I'm trying to kind of bring into the I don't know, mainstream, I guess.
Oh, I mean, you've spoken to me so much there. I mean, my whole career has been around purpose and teaching kids the importance of understanding purpose and that type of stuff. So I just love that, because I think it can start with the minute that you lose your purpose. It can just spiral, into so many different things. So yes, I feel like everyone needs you in their life. Amazing. Now going kind of into that meditation piece, firstly, how would you describe what meditation is? Like, what's your definition of that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, let's talk about what mindfulness is first. So mindfulness, my very simple definition of mindfulness is what's going on in my experience right now, or probably a bit more specifically, being aware of what's going on in my experience right now. So what can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? What can I taste? What's the other one? Feel? Said that one? I don't know. We've got 5 senses, haven't we? So whatever our 5 senses are telling us, right? And then it's also being aware of what's going on in my mind and being aware of what emotions are in the body. So it's not about having no thoughts and, clearing my mind of thoughts necessarily. It's not about having no emotions or pushing them away, but it's being aware of thinking when I'm thinking and being aware of what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it. So rather than being in that autopilot. So many of us are in that autopilot. Maybe, the average person is in autopilot 50% of the time. Someone like me back in the day, I would have been, above average. So maybe I would have been autopilot 80% of the day. Who knows? But it's about bringing ourselves out of that autopilot and being more intentional about what we do. So that's the main reason why me and my high-performing clients practice mindfulness meditation. So meditation is the practice of mindfulness. So it's the daily practice of me sitting there for 10 minutes with my eyes closed each day, paying attention to what I can feel, what's going on in my body, what's going on in my mind, what does my breath feel like? Maybe what can I see? I could do eyes open meditation. What can I hear, right? So it's just about practicing being aware of and what's going on with one particular object. So we can choose the breath, we can choose sensations, we can choose sounds, we can choose whatever we want. We look at a candle, okay? But it's being purposeful and intentional about paying attention in a particular way to an object. And then every time I get distracted, which I will over and over, it's bringing that attention and focus back. Okay. So there's the strong part of mindfulness, or the masculine side of mindfulness, which is the intention and the focus and the concentration. And then there's the feminine side of mindfulness, which is the attitude of mindfulness. And so that's when you inevitably do get distracted, how do you come back? Do you beat yourself up? Do you get angry with yourself? Do you get impatient with yourself? Or do I come back gently? Do I come back softly? Do I come back compassionately? Right?
What a description.
And I love that. The masculine feminine there is beautiful, because even the nurturing aspect of bringing yourself back, as opposed to, beating yourself up or giving yourself a hard time.
Yeah, well, I mean, and nurturing's right there. And the reason why I'm so kind of particular in how I explain that in that kind of masculine and feminine way is because what I've found, the people that come to me, whether they're men or whether they're women, they're in their masculine, right? The people, right? So they're very good at, they're very intentional and focused and goal orientated, and let's be successful. Great. But what happens is when times get tough, they double down on that same energy, right? And that's the burnout risk. Okay. Now, when I first did my teacher training, don't know if I've told this story either, but when I first did my teacher training, so I've come a long way since then. But anyway, they told us about the kind of the strong side of mindfulness and the softer side of mindfulness. So the intention, focus, concentration, and then the 9 attitudes of mindfulness. So patience, letting go, acceptance, beginner's mind, trust, generosity, gratitude, non-striving, non-judgment. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cute. Something for the ladies, something for the ladies.
I love how your voice changed even as you said those.
I was like, I'll leave that to the side. I'm interested in that side of things, right?
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, and I'm there in my apartment in Waterloo, kind of just going, I guess I'm just going to have to accept what's going on. I'm just going to have to trust that the universe has got a plan for me. I'm going to have to just be grateful, that I've got my apartment, and grateful that I'm getting paid to stay at home by the government. And then I was like, these words sound familiar. So let me dust off my teacher training books. and then I took a deep dive into the attitudes of mindfulness. And for one, when I started practicing that kind of bringing that to my meditations, I've never dropped in as deep into my meditations before, because I realized I kind of been fighting, I'd kind of been furrowing my brow and digging into my meditation and sitting there and really focusing hard. And as soon as I started letting go and bringing in all these attitudes of mindfulness and really relaxing into it and allowing life to flow, or allowing the meditation to flow, that was the game changer for me, right? So from a practice point perspective, my practice went up, but also in life, everything became so much easier for me, right? Because now I don't have to do as much work, because the world does all the work for me now. And so it was really interesting. So, and then I realized, okay, so this is the insight I had during COVID. I was like, right, so it's not about, so when you have burnout, if you want to be successful, it's not about bringing that energy down. It's just about dialing that feminine energy up. Maybe not all the way, we don't want to get too crazy here.
Yes.
But
you gotta keep it there. Is this the balance? Is this kind of where like IQ meets EQ, that like learning the emotional intelligence side of it? Because I know that I used to operate very much in my masculine, running business, working hard, smashing goals. And I was very much working in that side of completely operating from my brain and from the mind constantly. And the lesson for me of then having to go all the way to the feminine was, it was more around getting in touch with my emotions, why mindfulness was important, and looking in the mirror, looking internally and moving into the heart space rather than kind of thinking from the mind, the logical brain. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. It does make sense, and unfortunately, my answer is, everything has to come from here for me, right? So that's why I've created a framework that helps. Maybe my EQ as a side effect, right? But everything has to come from here. I have to understand it up here, and then here has to tell my body what to do, and has to give me a set of instructions and an algorithm that I need to follow. I'm probably a little bit on the spectrum, possibly. So I think
we all are.
So I kind of need to tell myself exactly what to do, and I need to have a structured way of doing things. And so I kind of gave myself a structured way of doing things, and so that led to the EQ, and that led to me being in touch with my emotions. So, for instance, let's say, I don't know, I'm feeling stressed about something. I'm writing an email, and I notice my shoulders are up here, and I'm kind of, I'm furrowing my brow. Okay, can I just let that go? If I can, yeah, cool. All right, now I'm relaxed. Keep doing what you're doing, no problem. If I can't let that go, then all right, what attitude am I not bringing to this moment right now? Then I go through my little Rolodex of attitudes, and I go, I'm gonna go, okay, maybe I'm not being patient right now. Okay, do I really need to chase this person up on this email that's causing my body stress right now? You know what? I'll close it and I'll leave it, and I'll do the email tomorrow, right? Open up the email tomorrow. 9 times out of 10, that thing has already been done, and I didn't need to chase anyone up. So I didn't need to do that work. So a lot of the times I feel that my body is just kind of doing unnecessary work when it's stressed. So, all right, let's just take that work out of it. So yeah, so I'll just go through, maybe I'm not being grateful for what I've got. Maybe I'm not accepting that things are just the way they are, so there's all these different attitudes of mindfulness that I will bring in, and I'll just go through them. Usually there's an obvious one in there. Okay, I just need to be patient, or I just need to accept things the way they are, or I just need to be not so judgmental about what's going on right now. And then that just makes everything easy in my head and easier in my body. And then I can allow the work to happen for me. So I'm not pushing. If there's too much resistance, then that's when my body gets tight. And then I'm like, do I need to push? Sometimes I do. But at least I have that now. I have that mental checklist that I go through. And sometimes, yeah, I do need to clench my fists and fight my way through whatever block there is. But 9 times out of 10, I don't. Whereas back in the day, 10 times out of 10, I would.
Yeah. I love how you explain that, because I'm highly intellect driven as well, and I appreciate a good methodology and the step by step, because that allows, if you are highly intellect driven, they're the things that allow you then to drop in a little bit more into your body or into your heart space, or to detach and go to that place where you're observing yourself as opposed to being on autopilot. So I love how you've explained doing that, because it's almost then that you're kind of playing a game with yourself. It's like, oh, I've noticed this. So there's like an interrupt straight away. I've noticed my shoulders are all bunched up, my brow is furrowed. And then it's like, oh, let me run through my checklist. And it's like, to be able to do that. And then, for anyone who is that high achiever or, a serial entrepreneur, they are used to a degree of self-mastery. They love being able to master situations. So, here's Chibs' checklist of things that I need to go through. I'm just imagining being one of your coaching clients. So it's like, okay, well, when I notice this, this, and this, then I need to do this, this, and this. And you're balancing both sides of the yin yang, the masculine, feminine side of it. And it just allows people that is such a practical tool to be able to go through. And then, of course, it comes with, the more you practice it, the more it will come, on it. That becomes then your autopilot mode of operation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So make the autopilot work for you rather than be a slave to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think how you explain these things. And, one of the things I love that, Liz and I always have people and we talk about in terms of the podcast of being, bringing spirituality into the real world. And, I've observed your work for quite some time. Like we met many years ago now on a well-being at work conference. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, I love the way, and back then I wouldn't have been very spiritual, but I guess observing your journey and knowing how important, as Lynn said at the beginning, about meditation and mindfulness being so important on the spiritual journey. But I feel almost like you're bringing these tools that are so important for spirituality. They're important for well-being and, just like a living life. But the fact that you're almost bringing them in the back door for a lot of people. So for people in corporate organizations, it's like all of a sudden then they're becoming a little bit more mindful, a little bit more zen, a little bit more open to the bigger possibilities of the universe, the bigger possibilities of what is outside of them. So not just their family, their corporate organization that they work in, that they're starting to look at things in a bigger way. But I love that what you do, you seem to take very somewhat spiritual topics, but you strip them back completely. You strip all the spirituality out of it, talk about it in very, very practical terms. And so I feel, I guess from what I know about you, that's very intentional, but I would love to know the Chibs underbelly, your own. So that's how you present your work. That's how you get that done in a corporate organization. But what about for you and your own mindfulness and meditation and spiritual practice? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, well, again, haven't talked about this in public.
That's what we love, you see. That's what we try and do.
Let's see how
we have a little bingo card that goes ding. Okay, here's something I haven't spoken about before.
Let's see how it goes. Yeah. So, I mean, again, and this is just a theory, and I'm very aware that I have no idea what this is all about, and I have no idea whether this is real or not, whether I'm in a simulation, whether it's, when I die, that's it, whether there's a heaven, I have no idea. But the way I see things is, there's no way that I'm ever going to know the answers.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I can find out what the meaning of life, and objectively, there is no meaning. There's no meaning that I can prove anyway, but you have to live life like there is a meaning. Otherwise, it's going to be an empty life. So for me, and this is what I tell my clients to do, it's like pick a game and play it to the best of your ability, and also hold your goals very lightly. So for me, again, depends what day you catch me on, but currently, and I guess this is my overall kind of purpose in life. And well, let's just go. Yeah, I suppose I'm hesitating. All right, so I've done a lot of psychedelics in the past. Let's just put it out.
Let's go there.
Right.
Okay. You know the next question.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna go into detail about which psychedelics I've had, just in case. I don't know what the statute of limitations are.
We can go anywhere you like.
Some are legal now, some are illegal, so
Okay.
we might kind of go there. But let's just say, broad brush psychedelics, right? So I've done psychedelics in the past, and so I know for an absolute fact that this is one version of reality. This is a version, right? And I know that there are other versions. There might be infinite versions. I don't know, right? So the very fact that I know that this is just one version of reality means that, one, I don't need to take this version as seriously as I used to take it. And then also, I've had out-of-body experiences on my psychedelics, and so I have really experienced meeting God, being God, seeing that God is in everyone. The very first time I went out of my body, it was like, this is what happened the very first time I had an out-of-body experience, right? Met God, was God, everyone's God. time isn't linear, still don't really know what that means, and you need to learn more about quantum physics. So those are the five things that I
Just another day in the park.
yeah. No, I was like, yeah. So still don't understand quantum physics. I've tried.
Wow.
Something about, the observer effect and slit experiment and, all these things. I'm like, yeah, okay, vaguely I understand, but I don't really understand. So yeah. So I know that up there I kind of get it. Down here I don't get it. But, what I've found is that, you have to pick a game, right? So, but it helps to treat it like a game because then I don't take it so seriously. So my game right now is to be, is to help the world while I help myself, while I learn more, while I create lots of content that will help people reduce stress and burnout, right? So I'm playing being the meditation guy, right? So I still kind of chuckle to myself, I'm on the Calm app and, like, how did I go, like, it's just
how did this happen?
A bit silly. It just seems a bit silly for me to have had my kind of, my path in life, but to look back and like every single thing that I went through was just perfect, and everything kind of lines up exactly to where I am now. And now I'm in a position where everything is, like every single lesson that I learned, I'm so grateful for, and this is no power of positive thinking, but my burnout was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because otherwise I'd still be hustling right now and, and I'd still be, drinking more than I should and taking more drugs than I should and eating more than I should and doing a lot, having a lot of unhealthy habits to cope with the stress. And now I'm in a position where I can literally just work on myself in public, which keeps me accountable, and I've got a very big ego and I don't want to fail in front of everyone. So as a stress and burnout coach, I'm never going to be able to burn out because that would be too embarrassing. So, and plus I need to understand things in a particular way. So I'm like, what does that mean? What does that spirit? I don't get it. I don't get that spiritual practice over there. What does it mean? Okay, let me translate it in my head. Okay, I think I understand it now. And now I can translate that to regular folk like me, and I can explain it in a way that kind of I understand because I have to translate it in my head first. So I feel like I'm here to kind of bridge that gap between spirituality and materialism, because I'm firmly planted in both, right? So I love stuff and things in the material world. As I say, I'm playing this game here, and part of that game is enjoying seeking pleasure and enjoying material things and pretty things, and I really like this world, but it's a stressful world. So okay, how do I enjoy it but still kind of have a bit of adrenaline going and kind of excitement, but it doesn't go into anxiety or burnout. So that's the game that I'm playing. And so I'm hoping to, what I'm aiming to do is to help high achievers become high performers, right? So have that high achieving energy, but keep that sustainable over time rather than do what I did and, burn brightly, crash, and keep doing that. So how do we, walk around that mountain, gradually getting higher and higher and higher, but enjoying the scenery on the way up. That's the way I see my life right now.
I feel like you're a total
poet. Absolutely. It's like how you break things down, how you explain things. It just, I guess, like as you say, a translator being able to bridge that gap is such a fantastic thing, because you're doing the sense making, and then you're not just making sense of it for yourself. You're able to translate that and do it in a very, very engaging way for people that inspires change. Because, if you're not going to be inspiring, if you're not going to activate people in some way, then it's going to be, oh, that was nice, thanks, see ya, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But, how you're breaking these things down, it's like that sticks with people, and therefore they're going to be inspired to change how they live, how they operate.
I just think it's all really cool, to be honest. I do have one question, because I can't just go past the psychedelic thing. I've got to go back there.
Exactly.
This is the perfect forum for this conversation, by the way. Just interesting. So you're on that kind of that mindfulness journey. what was that pivotal moment? Maybe it happened even before it, that psychedelics was the choice, okay? And why? Like, how do you see psychedelics play into this journey?
Yeah, honestly, like, so the psychedelics was pre-burnout, okay? But as you know, I think, what is it Alan Watts said, once you get the message, hang up the phone. So I didn't hang up the phone. So I got a lot of downloads very early on, and then after some time, it was just escapism. So I think historically with psychedelics, in the olden days, we would have had a shaman who would be kind of controlling things, and you'd maybe do it once a month during the full moon, or something like that. So there was, if you've got someone guiding you through, then I think you can get the messages and you can get the downloads, and as long as you integrate them, I think they can be very helpful. And so I did a lot of integrating at the start, but then less so nearing the end. And since my burnout, I haven't really dabbled much with psychedelics, because again, the game that I'm playing is, what can I do au natural? So I've been there, I've done that, I've kind of gone to the jungle and done ayahuasca, and been taken away by aliens and probed for eternity. That happened.
Yeah. Jesus.
Okay, look, you see, you keep dropping these things, and we're like, wait a minute, we've got to go there.
I feel like this is like another podcast, though. We're going to have to persuade you to come back.
Out of body experiences, alien things.
Yeah. Well, luckily it wasn't the kind of, probing you might think. It was like billions of tiny little probes going through every single cell of my body, scanning me up and down, again,
cool.
forever. It wasn't that cool, no, because it was forever. And that was a long time. And then I came back and I was like, yeah, what the hell just happened there? But anyway, I'm stuck in the middle of the Amazon right now. But so I've I've done things like that. But now I'm kind of, I guess, never say never. But if I was to do it again, I would be doing it in more controlled environments, and I would want someone to help me integrate what I learned. But what I'm doing now is integrating everything that I've learned in my life, I suppose, through these practices that I'm doing. But it's still, honestly, coming from a very intellectual place, right? So I'm very interested in the human condition. I'm interested in philosophy and why people do what they do. So I'm very fascinated, and I'm not in the practice of getting involved in other people's games either. So I don't really give advice generally. I'm like, here's a tool, go and do this, try this, see what it's like. This works for me, this works for some of my clients, see what you do, and usually there's something that you can find to make your life feel better. And that's really my main concern, is like, how is everyone feeling? Okay, because people that come to me or listen to me, they're generally not feeling great. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in feeling better and feeling more at ease in the world and feeling safe in the world. So that's my main priority. But if that leads you to a spiritual journey, great. So, I've had one client I can think of in particular, like he's way past my level of spirituality now. He's definitely gone on his own journey, and that's cool. But, I'm not going to be helpful here. I'm interested in helping you here. I want to I want to raise you up, and then you go whichever way you want to, so it's that's why I'm here. Can't remember what the question was, but there's an answer.
I love it. You covered so much, but so I love that you've painted like we barely scratched the surface, and we, like I think you've peppered some of these things in that we just want to know more about. But if you look back over, the your own life and your own experiences and the experiences of your clients, and that that intellectual brain that you have that's always data gathering and sense making of things. Are there any insights? So you said you don't give advice, but are there any major insights that you have that, if you look back now to where you are at this point in time, that you can share with us? Just like what have you, Chibs, learned in life that would be valuable to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so I've covered some of it already, but let me get specific about it. So I'm particularly interested, I guess I've got two niches. One is kind of high performance and how to turn a high achiever into a high performer, right? So how to make that, get that high achieving kind of that fire in your belly, right? So us high achievers, you know, we're high achievers because, I don't know, mummy didn't hug us enough, or daddy didn't tell us we were clever enough, or whatever it may be, right? But we've got this fire in our belly that wants us to succeed and wants us to create. But I think that that fire is the birthplace of creativity, right? That's what makes things happen. If I didn't have that fire in my belly, then if I'm content with life, then just live. And that's cool, right? But lucky you if you don't have that fire in your belly and you're happy with life and content. But for whatever reason, you know, people like me aren't content, and there's a little bit of a kind of an anxiety to do something and to create and be successful. So with that in mind, I'm not about getting rid of that anxiety. I'm like, okay, this is my game. Let's work with what we've got, right? And so what my framework has done is kind of developed some containers for that fire. So how do I make that fire energize me forward and fuel me forward rather than turn into anxiety and burn me out, right? So the containers that I have are, one, the attitudes of mindfulness, okay? So bringing in those softer attitudes, the patience, the acceptance, the non-judgment, non-striving, those kind of attitudes. That protects me against burnout and my clients. And then the other one is purpose. That protects me against burnout. So as long as I've got those two containers working for me, so that's my gift to the world. That's my insight to the world. And that's what I work on with my high achieving clients. So that's what I'm teaching. And the other thing I do, I've got a pretty voice, so I do some nice calming meditations for everyone, you know, so.
I'm going to actually quote something here. So the very first time, this is for our listeners, the very first time that I had met Chibs, you were introduced on stage at the Wellbeing at Work conference to do a mindfulness meditation that day. And you were introduced as having a voice like liquid chocolate. And I hadn't heard you speak until that was said. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I was transported to a totally other place. So for all of our listeners, not only will you get the chance, you know, you can tune into, you know, Calm, you can tune into Insight Timer as well. I believe you've got stuff on there as well.
It's YouTube right now. So yeah,
very good.
My YouTube channel was just blown up. So now I'm super interested in YouTube, whereas I was before.
A whole new lease of life there. But I want to say a huge thank you to you as well, Chibs, because our listeners, you are all going to get gifted with a beautiful mindfulness meditation from Chibs that is going to bring us in from 2024 into 2025. And hopefully this is something that is going to encourage you to take up, to be more mindful, to add meditation to your practices, be they spiritual or just overall well-being. But this is a beautiful gift, and we will be airing it as a separate episode, as a bonus episode. But thank you so much for that, Chibs, because I know the power of your voice and of your meditation. So it's not just the gift of this actual podcast and interview and all of the insights. It's the actual beautiful meditation that people will be able to experience and listen to multiple times as well. So thank you for that.
I feel like I cannot wait to listen to that. It might be listened to every single day to bring me into the new year.
Exactly.
And honestly, I feel like I need to go and check you out everywhere. Every single one of your links is going to be in the show notes. But if there's one place that you want to talk about right now, where should everybody go to check you out?
Oh, YouTube. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. So now I know all about YouTube analytics and engagement and reach and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm slightly obsessed now. So it's exciting actually, because you know, like I've just hit like 10,000 subscribers. So you know, and there's, you know, one of my meditations is, you know, just hit 100,000 views, and you know, so yeah, they're really building up steam. And yeah, so I'm just realizing like how, you know, I'm just reading the comments and how I can do one piece of work and it can just stay there, and it can help so many people. And that was intentional at the start, and that's why Calm was such a blessing to me. Like millions of people have listened to my meditations on the Calm app, and I can really do a lot for a lot of people, and that's part of my vision. And I've been very clear on that for years. But so the universe is really allowing that to happen at the moment. So I love it. I really love making those meditations, and I think that comes across when you listen to them.
Definitely.
Can you tell us your page name just quickly?
Chibs Okereke meditations. Yeah.
Easy. Okay.
Everything's pretty straightforward.
Awesome.
And I do want to do a shout out, just so we didn't really touch a lot on your corporate work as well, but like just there's a lot of people that will be listening to this that yes, they have a foot in the spiritual world and a foot in the corporate world, but if your organization is looking to bring someone into, because in the well-being space, it is so important to bring these practices in. And you've heard Chibs speak today, so you already know how he breaks things down and how he is looking at that high performance. I just think it's you're just such a a phenomenal person to go into a corporate organization to be able to bring this to it. And for me, just knowing that it's bringing a bit of spirituality in through the back door.
That makes us happy. Yeah.
And I promise I won't talk about aliens.
Oh my goodness, that has just been such a good conversation. I feel like I'm walking away with loads, but there's just still so much to learn from you. Thank you so much for being here, Chibs. It's just been great.
It's been lovely to chat.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And yes, head to the show notes, listen to the meditation, and please share your thoughts and your progress for the next year as well. It's hopefully going to be a good one. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you again very soon.
That's it for another episode. Thank you for listening.
If you're looking for a place to feel at home and want to level up your spiritual game, head to our website, spiritualaf.co, to check out our upcoming online events and for information on how to join our Spiritual Renegades community.
Plus, leave us a 5-star review with an awesome comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we're going to send you a free ticket to one of our Supercharged session events.
Until next time, stay spiritual as fuck.